Namaste and welcome. I am Pratim Ranjan Bose and you are listening to my podcast Perspective. At the outset, let me wish you a very happy and prosperous 2024. In this episode, I'll share my views on the democracy debate concerning the Narendra Modi rule in India. The Indian National Congress led opposition, which is failing to get votes, and the so called left liberal intellectuals from India and abroad think that Modi is in power at the compromise of democratic values and equity. With India heading for general election this year and PM Modi's BJP is looking distinctly ahead in popularity, it is time to take the debate to a conclusive end. After almost 10 years in power, opinion on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government in Delhi is sharply divided. His detractors allege that Indian democracy is under threat. To their credit, India's ratings in the Democracy or Press Freedom Index are severely, if not hilariously, affected. The critics of Indian democracy want to delegitimize Modi's popularity and sustained electoral success. However, it is laughable to rate India far below the drug cartel ruled Colombia in democracy ratings and below China's Hong Kong or Taliban's Afghanistan in the Press Freedom Index. Those who did it are at the risk of making the whole rating process inconsequential. Dogma is a state of mind and there is little point in contesting it. I would rather take my audience to a more objective debate on efficient governance. I think Modi saved the emerging economies from losing faith in the capacity of democracy to deliver first growth. He has shown that populist democracies can be as performance driven as a totalitarian China, which had once caught the imagination of the world for its stupendous success in replacing poverty with prosperity. What's gone wrong with democracy? Quote unquote. The Economist asked in February 2014. The answer was known. Democracies gave reasons for their failures, but no solution. In short, they lacked a demonstrative effect. The Western democracies are of no comparison to the global South, as they never had as many people to feed as the emerging nations in Asia and Africa. Moreover, the West didn't give equal voting rights to all citizens before attaining prosperity. Not to mention that their prosperity was fueled by colonialism. Poor populous democracies like India had no role model before them that could be an example of delivering speedy growth without sacrificing the political freedom of its citizens. Global investors and media admired China, and even Indians were critical of the country's slow growth vis-a-vis northern neighbor. In May 2014, when Narendra Modi became India's Prime Minister, efficient governance and not the type of governance was the focal point of global debate. Modi took the challenge. Democracy can deliver, he said. 10 years down the line, Modi stands vindicated. India did deliver under his leadership. The attitude of global investors towards India has changed for the better. Even Modi's worst critics should agree that the pace of decision making and implementation has reached an unprecedented high since liberalization in 1991. All of this is leading to high growth. According to International Monetary Fund, India contributed 16% of global growth in 2023, and that's no fluke. India's inflation-adjusted real gross domestic product or GDP grew by a record 8.1% between April 2021 and September 2023. The previous high was 7.4% during Modi's first term as Prime Minister. Prosenjit K. Basu, a former chief economist of India and Southeast Asia at Credit Suisse First Boston, argued that an average real GDP growth of 7.5% became the new normal in Modi's India. Growth is not new to India. Successive Indian governments contributed to it. However, the slow pace of reforms and delays in project implementation limited growth potential in the past. Modi changed the pattern. He took India on a reform and implementation rush. A small example may help us understand the difference in governance. Till 2014, the Indian government provided nearly rupees 2000 crore in the annual budget for the development of Northeast India. However, not even 10% of the budgeted amount was spent. In 9 years of Modi, annual budget provisions for Northeast India increased by 1.5 times to rupees 3000 crore. But expenditures increased by 12 times to match the provisions. The era of big plans and no action is finally behind us. Modi indeed has had an extra edge due to the huge majority of BJP in the parliament. The coalition governments between 1996 and 2014 did not have that advantage. However, the majority does not guarantee performance. The Rajiv Gandhi government of Congress between 1984 and 1989 had an even bigger majority. It had left behind a bankrupt socialist economy, a trail of controversial decisions, and a legacy of disastrous foreign policy outings. Again, the BJP's Atal Bihari Vajpayee-led coalition during 1998 and 2004 was exemplary in its focus on development and left behind a solid balance sheet marked by 3 consecutive years of current account surpluses. But Manmohan Singh's Congress-led coalition between 2004 and 2014 blew up the advantage. Singh left behind a torpedoed economy. Decision-making stalled. The current account deficit reached a record high of 4.8%. Modi stabilized the ship and propelled it to higher growth, ignoring the pandemic and the post-pandemic uncertainties. Never before the world was so uncertain as in the last 4 years, and it could remain so for another few years. After the liberalization in 1991, the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao famously said that it was time to replace ideological politics with performance-driven politics. Rao was highly influenced by the vision of China's Deng Xiaoping. The Indian voters took time to optimize the opportunity, and Modi is the first Indian politician who realized Rao's dreams. In the past, voters replaced a performance-oriented Vajpayee government with a Congress-led coalition. The same voters gave more seats to Modi in the 2019 election in appreciation of his performance in the first term. Essentially, therefore, Modi raised the bar for Indian politics. All governments put timelines for project completion, but the Modi government has been exceptional in achieving them. Taking toilets to every home has been a long-drawn agenda. Modi made it happen. Same with electricity and cooking gas connections. From the abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir to promoting digital transactions, Modi moved mountains and made unthinkable happen over the last decade. The opposition went after his temporary failures, like the 2016 demonetization. But that's missing the woods for the trees. In the end, Modi stuck to his target. The high-value rupees 2000 currency note was recently withdrawn to complete the demonetization. Meanwhile, bank account-linked digital payments became commonplace. This government didn't ask people to wait for a lifetime to see benefits coming. Voters experienced a rapid improvement in the nation's highways and railway infrastructure. Logistics costs have reduced from 14% of GDP to 8%. Indian democracy is finally giving competition to China in quick delivery. However, there is one weakness in this story. While the BJP has changed under Modi, the opposition is yet to get out of the old school thoughts. The recently concluded winter session of the parliament was the last full session before the 2024 election. In the past, such sessions were spent in useless discussions as the government avoided decision making. Modi changed the rule and introduced at least 6 high-profile bills, including the new criminal and penal codes, for discussion. The opposition was expected to participate in debate and find faults, if any. But they stuck to the old formula of creating ruckus, leading to expulsion of nearly 140 MPs. Bills were passed without adequate discussion. Such policies will not cut much ice in New India. In the past, democracy was only about options. Modi introduced a performance clause to it. Now the opposition should be performance driven as well to get votes. Until that happens, there is no stopping of BJP's juggernaut. Democracy is very much at work in India and is maturing. Only the greatest proponents of democracy fail to keep pace with the changing times. Thank you for listening to Perspective. I once again wish you a very happy and prosperous 2024. If you like this episode, please share and subscribe. See you next week. फिर मिलेंगे.